Okay, so I will open the solution in which we were working, which we had prepared in our last session. So, before we start our session, any other questions you have?
Not from my side.
Okay. Okay. So, if you see here, this in Tabular SSAS, we have two views. One is our grid view and one is our diagram view. Okay, so in the diagram view, you will see the relationships that exist between the tables. Okay, now if you see here, this is my fact internet sales and this is my dim date. Okay, now you will in tabular between two tables you can only have one active relationship. Okay, now the active relationship is your solid line. The dotted lines that you see, those relationships are inactive relationships and those will not work. They are there in the model but they will not work. At a time you can have only one active relationship. So ideally this relationship based on the order date key, that will be your active relationship, and the other ones based on the due date key and the ship date key, that is your inactive relationships and that will not work. But ideally, if you think about a data warehouse, you need all your relations between dimension and fact tables to work, right? So that is the concept of role playing dimensions. So this is very easily handled in multidimensional database data warehouse, because in multidimensional data warehouse you can easily create role playing dimensions. So one for due date and one for order date and one for ship date, and then you can relate those three dimensions with this fact internet sales. So the concept of role playing dimensions is easily implemented in um, multidimensional cube, but that feature, inherent feature, is not there in tabular. But there is a way how we implement this in tabular. So I will show you how we do that. So first what I'll do is since the active relation is based on the order date key, I will rename this as order date. Okay. Now, I need two more date role-playing dimensions, for one for due date and one for ship date. So for that, we have a concept in Tabular known as calculated table. So using the calculated table feature, we can create a copy of our table. Okay, so I will create a copy of this order date. It will be an exact replica of this order date table. So for creating a calculated table, this is a see here you have to click create a new table calculated from a DAX formula. So you need to click on this and it is creating a new calculated table. Now here you need to specify the DAX formula. So here I can write order date. So if I write order date, it will create an exact replica of the order date table. Now let me process this table. Okay. Now I will rename this as ship date. And similarly, I will create another calculated table for due date. Okay, so I have now three dimensions tables. One is order date, and one is ship date, and one is due date. So they are actually the same table, but the order date is the main table, and these two are calculated tables created from the order date. And you can see here that the between the main table and the calculated tables, you can see here there is one for calculated tables, this symbol is there, so you can distinguish between which is your main table and which is your calculated table. Okay, now if you go to your diagram view to check the relationship, somehow my solution is not responding, so I need to open it again. Okay, so now you can see here, this is my grid view. Now I will go to my diagram view to check the relationship. Okay, now you can see here, if you go to the newly created tables, ship date and due date, you can see that it is not related to my fact table. So I need to create one active relationship, otherwise it will not work. So for that, what I need to do is I will create the relation based on my date key. So I will highlight it, right click, create relationship, and here is my ship date table. So the key on which I want to create the relationship, I need to highlight it, and you see active is checked. Okay, here I need to select the second table, which is my fact internet sales, and I want to create the relation on my ship date key. So this is my ship date key, and it will be a one-to-many relationship. So on the dimension side it is 1, and on the fact side, it is many. Okay, filter direction to fact entrance cells, and that is okay. So when I click on OK, you see this relationship is created. Similarly, I need to create a relationship with my due date. So you can see here that now the relationship between these two are created, and now I can easily slice and dice my data using the ship date and due date also, and they will work as same as the role-playing dimensions which we had in multidimensional SSAS. So as you can see that most of the things we can implement in both the versions. It is only there are different ways to implement it. So you have these tables. Okay. Now the second next thing that we would discuss is how we create user defined hierarchies in tabular SSAs. Hierarchies is a very important feature, as you might have seen it earlier, or if you have worked in any data warehouse project, you will see that most projects have hierarchies. Because why that is important? Because it makes it easier for users to navigate the data, and users usually want to see the data in that manner. So that is why we usually we need to create hierarchies. Now, how we create a hierarchy in tabular essays? We have already discussed how we create in multidimensional. So now we will discuss how we create a hierarchy in tabular. So let's say in order date, I need to create a calendar hierarchy. So where at the topmost level it will be calendar year, then calendar quarter, then the month, and then each individual day. Okay. So here if you see the topmost level, we have calendar year, but in calendar year it is showing 2005. So instead of this, I want to display CY 2000 CY space 2005. So what I will do is I will right click and I will click on insert column. Okay. Now here I will create a concatenation of CY string with 2005. So how we can do that is there is one concatenate function in DAX. So I'll use that. and I'll close the bracket. And I'll rename this to year. So this is what we call a calculated column. Okay. Now similarly for calendar quarter also, see this is value, this is 3, the calendar quarters, but if I display that in my hierarchy, it will not make much sense. So I need to display something like Q3 CY 2005. Then it will make sense that this is quarter 3 of calendar year 2005. So for that, I will create another calculated column. And here I will use, because a lot of concatenation I have to do, so I will use nested concatenate values. So here Q, and the limitation of concatenate function in DAX is that it will only take 2 strings. Okay, so I have to create nested concatenation. And then I'll put a space CY and then the calendar year. I will close this bracket, then the second bracket, and then the third bracket. Okay. So if I now this is my quarter, and see, now you can see it is much more understandable. Okay. And now I will go to the month and I'll create a month calculation. I'll add the year to the month so that it is, oh, sorry. this comma the month and the year. Okay. Sorry, I'll put a space here. Okay. So now I'll rename this to month. Okay. So you can see here, now we have uh, year, quarter, month, and our last year, last level would be each individual day. So for each individual day, I can display this column, which is the full date alternate key. But I don't want to display the time. So what I'll do is I will just create a duplicate of this. Okay. Now I will replace this as, rename this as day. And yeah, I don't want the time, I only want the date. So for that, what I'll do is, if you press F4, you will go to the properties window. So you go to F4. Let me open the properties window. Let's say you highlight a column and press F4. One second. It's not opening at the moment. Okay, this window will open up when you press F4. So here, if you see, the data type, it's set to auto. Okay. And you have the format string option here. One second, data. So you have the different options here in data format. Okay, so you can select different options if you want. So I want only the date, I don't want the time. So I will select this short date option. So this will only give me the date. Okay. So now I will deploy and process this. You can see, in order to save time, I've set this processing option to full. So every time it will deploy, it will process my cube also. I don't have to um, go and do the processing. If I set it to do not process, then it will only deploy and not process, and I will have to manually do the processing. So just to save time, I've kept it to full so that every time when I deploy, it will after deployment it will do the process as well. Okay, now if you go to the in order to create a hierarchy, we need to go to the uh, diagram view. So here, so I'll create this order date hierarchy. This is the maximize button. Okay, so I'll click on the maximum. Okay, okay. So I'll have to restart the solution. Okay, so now I have to, I'll go to the diagram view, and here I'll click on my max. Now here I will create a calendar hierarchy. So for this there is a button called create hierarchy. So I'll click on this. You can see it is the default name of the hierarchy, and I can create the hierarchy at the topmost level. I will use this calculated column here. So I'll right click and I'll add to hierarchy. Okay. Then we have quarter. and then you have month, and then you have day. Okay, you heard quarter, month, and day, and I'll rename this to calendar hierarchy. Okay, so now I've created this hierarchy, and okay, let me now deploy and process this. Okay, so now you have seen it is still showing deploy started. So once it will complete, I'll browse the data now in my tabular cube. Okay, so it is now created. Now, if I go to my tabular server, so the same way you can connect to your analysis services, and I will connect to my tabular instance. So here, this is my tabular database. Okay, so I browse it. Okay, now here, instead of browsing here, I will browse in Excel. So it will be easier for me to browse the hierarchy in Excel. So I will use the Excel for browsing. Okay. So here, let's say you take the internet sales amount. Okay. So you can see here that it is showing the rupee symbol, because by default my setting is set to Indian rupee. So if I want, I can change it to some other currency as well. If I go to fact internet sales, Okay, here is my measure. So if I press F4, so you can see here that the decimal places to and the format is currency. If I want, I can select any currency from here. So if I want, I can select dollar or pound, whatever I want. So let's say I want to change to dollar. And if I refresh now, okay, now it has changed to dollar, the currency. And now I'll take the hierarchy that we created. So this is the hierarchy. Okay. So if you see here, this is at the year level, this is at the quarter level, this is at the month level, and this is at the day level. Now, you might think that, see here, it is doing the sorting based on the it is doing alphabetical sorting. So February is coming before January, and here also June is coming before May, because J comes before M and here F comes before J. But I want to do the sorting based on the month number. So what I need to do here is, other than that, my hierarchy is working fine. So what I need to do is I need to go to the order date, and here for month I'll press F4. Okay, there is one option called sort by column. So here I will select month number of year. So the sorting will be based on the month number of year. So if I do that, and now if I deploy in process, similarly I can set the sort by column property for the other columns as well. Okay. It is still deploying. Okay. So now if I go to refresh, you'll see that now it is okay. April, May, June, January, February, March, July, August, September. So now it is working fine. So now, to be as a good practice, I will set the sort by column property for the other levels as well. For quarter, I will set this to calendar quarter. F4. So based on the calendar quarter value, it will be sorted. And for year, I will set it to calendar year. And for a day, I will set it to the date key. So now if I deploy, okay, so now if you refresh, you'll see that my hierarchy is created properly. Okay, and it is working fine. If you go here, okay, so this is working fine. So this is how we create hierarchies in Tabular SSAS. Now the next thing that we would discuss is how to create time intelligence calculations in Tabular SSAS. So before we do that, I'll take a 5 minutes break and then I'll discuss that topic. So, do you have any doubts or any questions regarding what we've discussed till now?
Indra,
Yes.
my concern is writing DAX calculations the way you're writing. I mean, how you said like it's going to take time. So, like in the beginning, how to deal with this thing?
Uh, it is like you will have to. Uh, there is no such specific way. Like when you see a good thing is that when you're writing the tax calculations, so that will give you some prompt, like when to use a column and when to use, so it gives you intelligence is there, so it will prompt you to write the proper syntax. But other than that, you have to search the internet for what will be the correct syntax for writing the tax expression. Because and with experience only you'll be able to learn so how to write the correct tax expression. So like there is no such rule, I would say, by which it will you'll see for any tax function or any MDX function, when you search the internet, you'll get the syntax and you'll also get the examples how they are used. So based on that, you'll have to write your syntax, and with experience you learn that how to write this tax expression or how to write this MDX expression.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Hello everyone.
Yes, Anwar.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think my network connection got disconnected, so I'll have to reconnect again.
It's okay.
Okay. Okay. So the next topic that we would discuss is how to implement time intelligence calculations in tabular SSAS. Now, this for this also, I guess you would need to write DAX expressions. Like in multidimensional, when we were implementing these kind of calculations, there we were using MDX, right? So, like let's say when while calculating running total, we use the periods to date function for calculating running total. Then while comparing one month of data with the month with the last year, we were using parallel period function in MDX. So those kind of calculations you can do it with tabular also. But for that, this also here also you have specific DAX functions which you need to use, and you need to write the correct DAX expressions to do that. But those kind of calculations can be done here as well. So I will show you how it can be done, though initially you might find that it is not very simple. Uh, See, anyways, if you're doing the same kind of calculation multidimensional, you need to know MDX. Here, if you're doing in tabular, if you're doing the same kind of calculation, you need to do DAX. So that is the difference. There, the language is MDX. Here, the language is DAX. But both ways it can be done. Okay. So I will show you how to do that time intelligence calculations. But first step in order to implement time intelligence is you have to mark your date dimension table as a date table. So for that, what you need to do is you need to go to the table option. You have to go to date and you mark as date table. So if you don't do this setting, then the time intelligence will not work. And you need to select a column which uniquely identifies each date in your table, and it should be of date or date time type. So here I I have two options. Either I can select the full date alternate key, or I can select the day calculated column. I cannot select date key because that is not in date or date time format. So I'll select the full date alternate key. Okay. If I would have selected the date key, it would have given me error. Okay. So now I have configured this my order date as my date table. So now I can go ahead and um, create my time intelligence measures. Okay. So here is my sales amount. So the first measure that I would create is the YTD internet sales amount. So YTD stands for year to date. So I will create um, running total measured, where let's say if you're looking at uh, June 2019 data, then it will be the sales amount will show as summation of January 2019, February to March, April, May, and June. So all these months of 2019, it will add the data and show me as June 2019. So it is kind of a running total what we implemented in MDX. So it is known as YTD, is Internet Sales Amount. So how I can create this measure is, there is one calculate function in DAX. The calculate function is very useful function. What it does is it calculates your measure based on the conditions which you specify. Okay, for a particular set of dates, it calculates your function. So I will use the calculate function here. You can see the DAX expression YTD. So the internet sales amount I'll calculate for all the dates till that month in the year. So I will calculate internet sales amount. I will calculate it for all the dates till in that year. So there is a function in DAX called dates YTD. So it returns all the dates till that date in that year. Okay. So this is my DAX expression, and I'll go here and I'll format this to currency, and I'll select English, United States here. One second. Okay. So now if I uh, deploy and process my cube, it will this measure should work as a running total. If you remember in MDX we had created a MDX calculation for running total. So this is the equivalent calculation for running total in tax. So instead of dates YTD, if you want at the quarter level and at the month level, you can at the quarter level you can use dates QTD, and at the month level you can use dates MTD. Okay. So now if I to refresh all, if I check the internet sales amount, you can see here at the month level, this is the data for January, February. One second, it is 17. It is not working. Why? Because I took a calculated column. I took a calculated column here. That is why it's not working. So you cannot take a calculated column in your calculation. You have to take a column from your table. So here what you need to do is you need to change this to full date alternate key. Okay, and then you save it. So now you can see it is working. So for quarter one, this is the value. Quarter two, it has added the value. For quarter three, it has added. Quarter four, this is the value. So for calendar year 2006, it should show 65,030. See, 65,000. So it is doing a running total. So if you see for January, this is the value. For February, it has added the value of January, February. Then for March, it has added the value of January, February, and March. Then for April, it has added January, February, March, and April. So the same kind of calculation that we did in MDX for running total, it is working the same way. Okay. Now the next calculation that we will do is, like, if you remember, I want to compare this month's data with the what was the sale in the last year for this month. For that in MDX we used parallel period. So we can use the data add function in DAX and do the same kind of calculation in DAX also. So for that I will create another measure. This I want to calculate for my last year, based on the last year. For that we have a very useful function in DAX called date add. So here in date add, first you need to, one second. So first you need to pull in the dates from the date table. So I will take, okay, from the date table all the dates for my previous year. So I will put the number is -1. If I want the 2 years back, so I will take -2. And then see here day, month, quarter, year, which level I want. So I want at the year level. So now I'll format this. So okay, now if you go here and if you refresh the pivot table, here there is one last year sales amount. So now if you see for July 2006, this year the sale is this much, and last year the sale was this much. Okay, now if you look at, see, this is July 2006, so this should be the value for July 2005. So if you go here, you can see this was the value for July 2005. So this is matching. So our calculation is working. So August 2006, this was the value for August 2005. You can see here, this was the value for August 2005. So it is matching and our calculation is working fine. For September also, this is matching with September 2005. So this is exactly, if you remember, this is exactly working as the measure which we created in MDX using parallel period. So if you want last year YTD internet sales amount, so I can create a measure for that also. Last year YTD internet sales amount. So I will do a calculate. Of I will take this YTD only and I'll calculate this for last year. Okay. So I will calculate the YTD amount for last year. So now if I go here and I refresh all, you can see the last year measured is also there. So as you can see here, last year July 2000 is September, it has added the values and it is showing the total value for Q3. So the total value for the Q3 last year was 14,053, whereas this year it is 1396. So the last year sales was more. Oh no, sorry. This is not the cumulative value. The cumulative value is this one. So for Q3 2006, the cumulative value for quarter 2006 is 5202 and last year it was 14. So this year the sale is much more. So these kind of calculations you can do using DAX. So these are all these calculations that you see. These are all known as time intelligence calculations. Okay, so you can implement the same kind of calculations in multidimensional also using MDX and same way like this YTD calculations that you see, you can implement that using periods to date function in MDX and the last year value you can fetch using parallel period function in MDX. So you can use these kind of calculations in multidimensional also, and yes, same way you can do it in tabular also. Okay, so the next and the last topic today that we would discuss is how we create semi-additive measures in tabular. So we have already discussed what semi-additive measures are, and we have also discussed how we create the semi-additive measures in multidimensional SSAS. And there are some aggregate type functions in multidimensional inbuilt aggregation types like last non-empty, first non-empty, average of children. So those kind of aggregation types are they are used for implementing semi-additive measures. In Tabular also you can do that, but the difference is in multidimensional it is comparatively easier because you just have to select the aggregate type. Here you have to write an DAX expression to do that. So how you can do that is, I'll create a measure. Let's say for sales amount, I want that at the end of each month or quarter, the balance, only the balance should be propagated to the next level. So at the end of quarter, what is the end of the value at the end of the quarter? That will be the value for the quarter. Whatever is the value at the end of the year, that will be the value of the year. So that kind of calculation also you can do. So I'll just, though sales amount is not the correct measure for that, because sales amount is an additive measure. It is not an example of a semi-additive measure. But for my example, I just want to show you how the DAX works. So for that, I will create a measure using the sales amount only, just to show you how you can write the DAX to create a semi-additive measure. So let's say I want to calculate the balance based on the sales amount. So here, I will calculate the internet sales amount. So that is my doing a sum of this sales amount column. It is the same thing. I can write a sum of sales amount as well. So let me show you that also. So you will get an example how we can write the sum also like this. So it is doing the same thing because internet sales amount is the sum of sales amount. Okay. So sum of sales amount, comma, and I want to put the last value for that sales amount. So there is one function called last non-blank. So it will give you me the last non-null value. Okay, last non-null value, and here I need to select my dates. Okay, which has a non-null value. So last non-null value, the count rows function gives me the count of rows, and the related table function gives me the table relating to that function. So here I will take fact internet sales. So I will now explain to you what this DAX expression is doing. Okay. Now, so what this DAX expression is, the related table evaluates a table with respect to the constraint and count of rows. So this will give me the count of rows from this fact internet table for the particular date constraint. So if I'm looking at a month or a quarter or a year, this will return me the fact internet sales for that month or quarter or year. Last non-blank will give me the last value with the non-null value. Okay, it will ignore the null values and it will give me the non-null value, and for that I will do a sum of the internet sales amount. So ideally I will get the last amount which is non-null for that period, for that date period. So if I run this query, okay. Now if I go here, refresh, so I take this balance measure. You can see here for July 2005, this is my balance. So if you look here for July 2000, July 31st, the value was this 15,012. And if I look at July 2005, that is the value. If I look at quarter, so the value which is at September 2005, that should display at the quarter level. So if I look here, see, this is the value at the quarter level. If I look at the year level, whatever is my value for Q4, that is my last value. So this should display as my year balance. See, so it is working as a semi-additive measure. So this is how you can implement semi-additive measures using DAX in Tabular SSAS. So any questions you have regarding what we've discussed till now?
Mr. Saha?
Yes.
Yeah, can you go back to the uh, balance formula? I mean, the FX formula for balance.
Okay. This is the DAX formula. The last
Yeah.
non-blank returns the date, the last date when there is a non-null value for fact internet sales table for that date period.
Okay, so whatever year or quarter I choose, okay, it's gonna give me the last non-null. So it will give me the kind of a subtotal,
Yes, right.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. And okay, got you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right. Okay, so if you don't have any questions, so we'll end today's session, and tomorrow we'll discuss how to implement many-to-many relationship and tabular SSAS. Okay.
Okay, Indra. Take care.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.